table view. You see here, the table view. After you find the table view, drag the table view to the blank screen in the storyboard. You see when you search table, it will show you table view controller and the table view. Do not drag table view controller to the main storyboard. You don't want to do that.
Always
If you already have a blank screen in the storyboard, you don't want to drag the table view controller to the screen main storyboard, because it is already a view controller in the storyboard. You don't want to duplicate another view controller on the existing view controller, but you want to drag the table view to the view controller in the storyboard. A table view is a component of the user interface. It's a view. It's not a view controller. That's the difference between these two. So if you already have a blank screen in the main storyboard, drag the table view to the main storyboard. And then you will see on your blank screen, it will show table view prototype content. This text will show in the main storyboard. The next step is to drag the cell. You can search table, it will show table view controller, table view cell, or you can search table cell. Drag this cell on top to the main storyboard. It will be on top of the table view you just created in the main storyboard. After you release your mouse, you will see a black bar, a white black bar on top of the view controller in the main storyboard. That means you create a prototype cell. This is a prototype cell. What is a prototype cell? Prototype cell refers to a model that shows you that Xcode already know there will be a cell in the view controller. But in that cell, it doesn't have any data. It doesn't know how many number of cells will show in your app. It's just a prototype, a model, that indicates that Xcode will show the cells in the table view. It's called a prototype cell. After this, we finish the visual design. Visual design. Yeah, visual, yes. Next, what we want to do is, can you recall that when we create a button, we need to open the assistant editor and then hold the button and drag it to the assistant editor, right? That's because after we finish the visual design, we need to let the Xcode know we create a new component in the app or in the view controller, right? We need to do the same thing when we create a table view. But this time, we don't need to drag the component from the main storyboard to the assistant editor. We use another way. We need to go back to the view controller.h. View controller.h. What is the second step? We need to add the table view delegate and table view data source to your current view controller. And this is how you add the delegate to a view controller. You use a less than sign, and then a greater than sign, and then add the delegate you want your view controller implements. between the less than and greater than sign. If you have several delegates, you use a comma to separate the delegates. What is delegate? Everyone, what is delegate?
Delegate is the rules.
Yes, the rules, yeah, simply speaking. Those are the policies you have to follow. I will explain to you why you have to follow later in this lecture. So just remember, when you create a table view, you need to integrate two delegates from a Cocoa library. One is UI table view delegate. UI table view delegate. Another one is UI table view data source. Does it matter if I switch the order? It doesn't matter. You can put the UI table view delegates in the front or in the back. It doesn't matter. What we try to do is we want to let our app know that we want to create a table view, and we don't want to create the table view from scratch. We want to integrate the table view and the components, all the functions of table view from the Cocoa library. That's why we want to add the UI table view delegate and UI table view data source. So we finish the second step. The third step is very important. Now we need to go back to the main storyboard. We need to go back to the main storyboard. We have prepared the visual design, and we already added the two delegates from the library. Now we need to make the connection between your visual design and your programming code, so that Xcode knows where the delegate should be put on, right? How you add the delegate to your visual design? You go to the main storyboard and click the black bar in order to make the view controller in a blue frame. You see the blue frame here? That means you choose the view controller. Many people will make a mistake. They will click either on the data view cell or click on the data view. If you click either one of these components, your view controller will not be in a blue cell or blue frame. If you don't see the blue frame, that means you did something wrong. You have to click on the black bar to choose the view controller, to choose the screen. The next step is you open the object library and then click on the connection inspector, the arrow here, the arrow on your right. And then it will show you the data source and delegate, two options here. Because you already add two delegates in your viewController.h. We just did that, right? It will show you two new options, data source and delegate. At this point, what you need to do is to drag the data source to the view controller, to the screen in the blue frame. And then you will see a very short line here. Yes?
But when you do that, it's already connected.
No.
Because it's here and it seems that's...
Not yet.
Okay.
Do you remember when you create a button in your viewController.h, it doesn't show any button code, right? You need to drag the button from the main storyboard to the assist editor in order to make the connection. Your Xcode will know how you want to perform actions on this button. After the user press the button, what information the user should see, right? when you create the table view, you also need to make the connection. But you cannot drag it to the system editor because we add 2 delegates. And we want to make the connection between the delegate to the view controller. This is how we make the connection. Yeah. So the third step, very important. Choose the view controller first, then open the arrow on your left in the object library, and drag the data source and that data delegate to the view controller. The screen in the blue frame. And you will see 2 short lines that indicate that you already make the connection between the visual design and your programming code. Last step is we want to use the code from those pages. I believe all of you, before this class, you already read the textbook, right? As I told you that when we create the table view, we want to use the class method from the Cocoa library. And because we added 2 delegates already, so we can inherit the class method from our parent class. Which one is our parent class? The UI view controller. Yeah. Because we already have the class method defined about a table view, so we just extend the existing class method of the table view. In table view, we have several important class methods that have been defined by Apple. The important class method include the number of sections. And then we have the number of rows in each section. And we have the cell for row at index. And then the last one, that will be the last one. If you want to have a multiple section, then you can define the number of sections as well. What is a section? A section means a group of table cells. For instance, in the textbook, it shows you a very simple example of 2 section tables. One section is blue color flowers. The second section is the red color flowers. In the blue color flower section, we have some kind of blue color flowers. Each flower takes a cell. And we have three blue color flowers. These 3 flowers form a group. For that group, you can give a name of that group to form a section. And also we have 3 types of red color flowers. For that 3 cells with 3 red color flowers, we also have a section. It's called a red color section. You can create a table view without a section. A table view without a section is just a list of data cells. In each cell, in each row, you have some data listed in that row. A section of, if you have different sections, and then you can add a frame around a section. For instance, if you want to separate the iPhone, iPad from iPod, Android, then you can create two sections. And the iPhone, iPad will form one section. So your table view looks like this. If I have a table view, only have one section, then as you can see, I don't have a frame surrounding by the data cells. I only have a table with 4 cells, and in each cell, I have the data listed. If I want to separate into several sections, 2 or several sections, and then I still have the number of cells with data. I still have these 4 cells, 4 rows. In each row, I will have the data inside. Because I separate into different sections, and then the data that has some close relationship will form a section. Surround the section, I will have a shaded area or a frame surrounds the section. So in this case, I have iPhone, iPad as one section. I have iPod, Android as another section. In that case, if you have different sections, and then in the number of cells, in this class method, you just inherit from the library, you have to return the number of sections. Because I only have one section, so I return 1. If you have 2 or 3, return the number you want to create. That will be the number of sections. If you have 2 sections, if you open your textbook on page 423, in your textbook, yeah, 423, figure 14.1. You see figure 14.1? Do you see?
What book? Which one?
In the 24-hour book. Yeah. In the 24-hour book on page 423, it shows you the example of 2-section data view, data table view. Figure 14.1. Laura, can you see? 423. Figure 14.1.
The one on the right?
No, both of the pictures. You see the difference?
Yeah.
423. Or you can search figure 14.1. This is a 1-section table view. So as you can see, it's just a table view, lists all the data cells. On page 423, this picture shows you the table view with 2 sections. As you can see, you can separate the red flower from the blue flowers. And then the red flowers form one section. If you form one section, then there will be a frame surround the section. Right? This is the function of number of group sections. Because you have to follow the table view delegate and table view data source, those two policies, so you have to implement the class method, number of sections in table view. How many sections you have, you return the number of sections. If you don't have any sections, then just return one. Otherwise, return 2 or more. So that you can tell your Xcode, your app, how many sections you want to show to your user. The next required class method from the two delegates is table view the number of rows in each section. Because it's required, so all these class methods I introduced you here, you have to write down the same format as they are in the textbook. If you change any letter, any case of the letter, you will get an error from Xcode. Because you are against from the policies defined by the table view delegate and data source delegate. So that's why for the fourth step, when you want to create the table view in detail, I require you to copy the code from page 437 to 443. Inside of the class method, you don't have to copy either code, any code from the textbook. However, the class name, the format, the returning type, the parameters, you have to copy every letter in the textbook. Because they are inherited from the library. So we finished the first required class method. The second one is the number of rows in section. So if you only have one section, and then you show the list. The nice thing about table view in iOS app is if you don't have all the cells filled, and then Apple will show some blank cells in the table view to make the screen look nicer. Otherwise, it will show you a scroll view, so you can scroll the screen to the end of the data list. Yeah.
Oh, you can still scroll here. Well, that's not,
You can.
You don't have that function.
Yeah, you can still scroll, and it will show animation of bouncing, but it cannot go to the next screen. So if we only have one section, and then in that section we need to tell Xcode how many cells I want to show to my user. As you can see, when you complete your visual design, you just drag a prototype cell to the main storyboard. The prototype cell only indicates the app will show some cell, but it doesn't know how many cells you want to show in the table view. And this is how we tell Xcode. We tell Xcode's number of cells in each section in the table view number of rows in section class method. And here we need to use some more advanced programming skill. Do you remember last time I tell you the self keyword? what self keyword represent? Eric?
It points to the item he's talking to at the current.
Yes, the current screen or the instance, the current instance of the class, right? We use the self keyword. In this example, before I create the table view, I first create an instance variable. And in that, it is a NS array instance variable. In that NS array instance variable, I put all the brand name of the product in the array list. What is a NS array?
An array is basically like it's
A list of
It's
data.
a list of data.
Yeah.
You can populate arrays.
Yes.
And there's mutable arrays and regular arrays.
Yes. An array is a list of data, but you just write down an array in a plain way or in a programming way, like this. You write down iPhone, iPad, iPod, but they are not listed in the Visual Design format, right? So this is how we want to populate the programming list, data list, to the Visual Design list. First step, we tell Xcode how many cells you want to show in the table view. And when we study the Objective-C book, the last thing we talk about is the COCO library. I told you that we will use three or four important classes from the library. One is NS string. Another one is NS mutable string. Then the third one is NS array to create a list of data, right? And then we need to use the NS mutable array, right? We learned that. What is the difference between NS array and NS mutable array, John?
The difference between an S array and an S mutable array?
Yes.
One is an array, regular array, and one's a mutable array.
Yes.
A mutable array is dynamic. You can
Well.
change it when it's already created.
Yes. NS array and the NS mutable array are both lists of data. So it really doesn't matter if you don't care about the size of the list. When you want to create a list of data in a programming language, you can use both NS array and NS mutable array. The difference between the two is the size of NS array is fixed. The size of mutable array is changeable. What do I mean by that? Now we create an NS array, and then we create an instance of that class. In that class, in that instance, we hold 4 data sets. We hold 4 data. As you can see in the textbook, you can use certain method to remove the data cell, right? You can remove the data in the list. After you remove, for instance, you remove Android, how many elements will be in the cell elements instance variable? 4.
Still 4, but it's not
Still
showing.
4. It's not showing, but how many elements?
Oh,
4 elements. If you use NS mutable array, if you remove Android, how many elements do you have now? 3. Yes, that's the difference. Okay. So in this sample example, I just want to program a list of data in a NS array instance variable, and then I try to populate from the programming code to the visual design. Right? You should be able to read this because this is a very basic fundamental knowledge already. Now I have the programming code, the programming list of data. As a developer, you know that you have 4 elements. But the table view in the main storyboard doesn't know how many cells, how many elements you want to show, right? So you need to tell the table view in the main storyboard. You have 4 elements you want to show to your user. And this is how you tell the table view in the main storyboard. We use return because, as you can see, the class method, the returning data type of the number of rows in section class method is NS integer. So basically, you need to return an integer. Even you don't want to show anything in the table view, you have to return a 0. But for this case, we have 4 elements. Then we need to return the number of elements in the NS array instance variable, right? The way I want to return it is self.cell_element. Then I use the class method of the NS array instance. I know it's become more complicated. What cell elements is an instance variable from the class of NS array, right? If you recall the lectures I taught you in the Objective-C book, the NS array class has several important class methods. For instance, how many elements in the NS array variable? We use the instance variable, the space count, to find how many elements in that programming list. Right? We can also use, for instance, add object to put more data cell in the NS array.
That's for when the user adds.
Add something. Yes.
Wait.
Yeah, yeah. Or you can use the element at index something to find the element data, the value of that cell in the position you just indicate, right? If you forget all these important class method of NS array, please read the Objective-C textbook. If I remember correctly, it's in the page on page 197 or 397. Yeah, it shows you a big table. Shows you all the frequently used class method of NS array and NS mutable array. What are the NS array and NS mutable array? They are classes. You cannot use classes directly. You have to instance the class, right? Make the instance variable in order to use the class method, right? You understand this? Okay, great. Then, you understand?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Okay. So now we get the number of cells in the programming list of data, right? We use the self.cell element. First, we refer to the instance variable of NS array type. And then we use the class method count from the NS array class to get the number of cells in the programming list of data. And then we return the number to Xcode. Now Xcode knows that, oh, you have 4 elements from your programming code. And then in the main storyboard, Xcode will extend the prototype cell, the cell you drag to the main storyboard from 1 to 4. this is the second required class method you need to implement. You may have a question about, do I have to use return and break it self.cell elements count? You don't have to. If you have a very simple app, you only want to show 5 cells in a table view. You don't need to use this fancy advanced class reference to return the number. You just return 5. That's it. Here I want to show you something in order to help you to understand the self, the NS array class instance, and the class method of that instance.
Would that be something where you could, like, if it was the table, it was kind of like changing a lot or something, and you didn't necessarily know, like you just put in something that basically says,
Yes,
check what's going on.
That's a very good point. If you have a changing table view, sometimes you want to remove some data cell. Very practical example, the notebook app. When you create several notes, when you open the app, it will show you a list of notes, right? Sometimes you remove the note, sometimes you add a new note. And then when you open the app, you will see different number of lists. Then this is how you, as a number, you keep the dynamic way to let Xcode know how many nodes you have in the app. You change for the node app, you change the NS array to NS mutable array. Then it will keep changing the size of the programming list of data as well, right? Next time when you remove something from the list, it will return the updated number of